All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the PMO Hub series. Today, we are going to have a bit of fun and not talk about AI or complex enterprises or transformation frameworks like I normally do, but instead, we will explore something I absolutely love, the idea of Projectland itself, which addresses the projects are everywhere and that success often depends less on tools or templates and more on people, collaboration, and story. And as some of you know, I've been exploring different industries recently, from Toronto International Film Festival to Formula One, and diving into those worlds has completely changed how I see project management right now. It is cinematic, it is unpredictable, and it's fun. So when I discovered that Laura Barnard and her son Grayson co-authored a book about this exact idea, connecting projects and movies, I knew that I had to bring them on right now. And I have one more surprise for you. We're joined not only by Laura and Grayson, but also by the editor of the book herself and co-author, Dawn. So welcome to the show, everybody. And I don't think Laura Barnard needs an introduction. I think all of you know her. So I'm excited to hear some ideas. So I won't keep you longer and start with my first question to Dawn about the Projectland. So I was excited and fascinated of the idea of Projectland. It feels like some fairy tale for me. So the term Projectland instantly creates a picture like a parallel world where every task and challenge becomes an adventure, at least from my perception. So Dawn, tell us a little bit, where did that idea come from and what made you think it could actually become a book and like the background of this?
Well, I'm so glad that's what you think of when you hear the term Projectland, because that's how I think of it too. What happened was I was standing in front of another group of wide-eyed adult learners trying to figure out how to explain why projects are so challenging. And I just blurted out, it's like a whole different world. Maybe we should call it something different. What about Projectland? and so just blurted out of my mouth. And then a week later, I came back to the client to check in on the executive that hired us to help them up their game. And I was walking down the hall past two of the gentlemen that were in class with me. And I just sort of waved and not really thinking, about what they were talking about. I didn't think it was my business. And so, but you know how if somebody says your name from across the room, you hear it? Mm-hmm. Well, it was sort of like that, because I just heard blah, blah, blah. And then I heard one man say to the other, but don't forget, it's different. It's Projectland. And I was like, wait, what? And so I thought, wow, maybe I finally found a way to explain why projects are so challenging. They are a different world with different roles and rules than the day job. And so then we tried it over and over with other folks, and it really stuck to help people understand that you can't make assumptions about what got you to this point in your career. If it's the first time you're on a project, you better pay attention.
I love it. And I love that you mentioned it's like a totally different world with different rules, because I think that's why many junior project managers are failing, because they think that it's the same world and the familiar rules, but no, it's like you are getting to the fairy tale and the rules are magical and you are still figuring out what the rules are. And that's why it's quite challenging to navigate at first until you accept that, no, I need to relearn and rethink everything I've learned before and just try to adapt myself to the new world. And I think this is where your idea, Grayson, came up, that you also needed to rethink some project management, what you've learned when you were young. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and so her first book ended up Projectland. That's her first book, where it was Meet the Players in Projectland. Mm-hmm. But then she shared this idea with us to explore a second book. That was something I thought this one might actually enjoy being a part of, which was...
Yeah, Projectland Goes to the Movies. So my co-editor on Projectland Goes to the Movies, his name is Jerry Manis, and he's already written a bunch of project management books too. And he helped me become an author for the first time with Meet the Players in Projectland. And we were talking about what book would we do next? And we have a list of 50 books that we could write between the two of us. But the one that we were most excited about was Projectland Goes to the Movies. So Laura and I talk a lot. And I said to her, what do you think of this idea? Projectland Goes to the Movies. And she was like, I love it. Right. And you were like, keep me posted. And so it started to become a thing. And I called her again. I said, do you want to be part of this? And she said, absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. And I said, and actually, was it your idea or you and I had the idea separately? And then we talked about it. I said, what do you think about this? And then you said, actually, I was thinking that'd be a great idea when we were talking about involving this one.
Yeah.
Here in the process.
No, yeah. So I said, I love Moneyball too. And I love baseball also. And these two are big on baseball. And so we have this in common, right? And so I don't remember if I suggested to you Moneyball or if you guys came up with it as well, but how did that go? Because it's been a while now.
Well, I believe I mentioned, so I've been playing baseball my entire life. The moment I was, must have been 3 years old.
No, literally a year old. The day he turned a year old, he got this cool toy. Remember the toy, the Fisher Price toy, where you would hit it with this little plastic bat and it would spin around and then like the ball was going to be, and it would make all this noise. So from literally his first birthday, he fell in love with this toy, fell in love with baseball, and then proceeded to turn everything into our house into either a ball or a bat. And and you could see him running around the house and sliding into these imaginary plates from before he was even talking. And I remember specifically at 1.5 years old in the backyard with a pacifier in his mouth, mumbling, "Mama ball, mama bat," as he was running around hitting everything he could. So this has been who he is. And he just turned 18 recently. So my first baby, and I'll say first because my book was my second baby.
I get that.
Yes.
That makes sense.
I'm not sure which was harder to create, but that's when he first fell in love with baseball. But go ahead.
Yeah, so like I said, I fell in love with baseball from a young age. And so when I first came across the movie Moneyball, I immediately fell in love with the story. Watching the Oakland A's general manager go through a tough situation with a low budget, the lowest budget in the MLB, losing top key players and facing opposition from old school scouts who had done the same thing over and over for years and the process had never been changed. And now Billy Beane, the general manager, needed to outthink his competitors because there was no way that he could compete with the big dogs of the MLB, like the Yankees, for example, with the tiny budget the Oakland A's had. This was reinforced when he met Peter Brand, a young economics major, who brought up the idea of looking at key metrics, one in particular, the ability to get on base and to focus solely on that tactic. And so they took that key metric when looking and scouting for players to find undervalued players who could get on base. And that's what they strive to do. And at first, they failed and they lost and they lost and they lost game after game after game. And everyone doubted them. The scouts on the Oakland A's doubted them. They still wanted to do the same old process they'd been doing for years. They didn't want to change. They rejected this new change that Billy Beane was promoting. And eventually, they started winning games. And the Oakland A's went on a historic 20-game winning streak and went all the way to the playoffs. And they continued to succeed and have the biggest winning streak in the MLB. Yeah.
It's a wild story.
It's wild.
Yeah. And ladies, Brad Pitt is in this movie. So just
So you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Because you think you
And
weren't.
I believe this movie is from 2011 or around like that area. So ladies, Brad Pitt star.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course he does a phenomenal job as this coach character, and it's based on a real story. So that's fun too, is the true story angle of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe the story is very inspirational because in business, we are always looking at large enterprises, corporations like Deloitte, McKinsey, Apple, etc. When all of them have the resources they can get, they can afford everything. But for like smaller enterprises or startups, when we just need to deal with whatever we have, and it's always challenging to find the right resources and even if you find the right one, it's so easy for this like large enterprises to get them out of yours just to offer them a little bit bigger paycheck. So I think the story is still giving us hope that it's possible to win, even having like limited resources, limited budget, limited everything. So thank you for bringing it up, and I definitely will rewatch this movie because I watched it in 2011, and now I kind of like forgot the plot, but it's true. It's a necessary movie to watch if you are a project manager or still connected with corporations. But I want to pivot my question a little bit from the book itself, but to the generational connection, because it's the first time I'm talking to a mother and a son doing something together and working on a project like that. And mom, hello, I know you watch all of my episodes, but
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you're not speaking English, so you won't understand what I'm going to say right now. I would never do anything together with my mom because I already know, even before we start, it's a nightmare. So I'm just curious, guys, how you did it and how you made it to the end.
That's hilarious.
Well, I'll start and then I'll let you answer because that's like you probably have more to say than that. But I'll just say that when Dawn first approached me about this book idea, I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I actually started brainstorming with Grayson because we like to watch movies together. And I started asking, like, so what do you think would be a good movie that connects to project management? And he's got a good story about like how he started learning about project management and strategy, and which he can share, of course. And then, but from my perspective, it was like, well, what if we did something like this? And what an interesting idea. And then he started talking about Moneyball, and he just like was all over it. He's like, oh, and then there's this, and remember the scene, and this happens, and that happens, and that connects to thinking differently. And don't projects always have limited budget and limited resources? And so that connects perfectly. So it was all that kind of discussion. And he said, and you know, I've kind of forced him to read my book. So so he knows kind of generally how we talk about what we do. And this one has been, you know, sitting on my lap from when I started this business when in 2013, when he was much younger, to now, where yeah, he's a little baby, a little bitty, maybe not a baby, but and so he's been around. And you know, many of those years I was a single mom, so I was taking him everywhere. I was taking him to all kinds of events we were doing, and he was, you know, would see me teaching or talking to people and talking about what we do. So he's gotten to see firsthand, I think, a little bit of like learning through osmosis or just kind of being around it, right? So he's picked up a lot more than I realized. And so when we started talking about this book, it was pretty exciting to hear all the great ideas of how he saw that connection. So you want to share?
Yeah, of course. So the first thing I thought when I was trying to decide what movie would fit best for this theme was, you know, what's a story that shows someone, an underdog, who's working in a situation where they don't have everything and they need to fight against people with everything. And I immediately thought of Moneyball, a team with no money, losing all their players. You know, they need to fight against these norms that these old scouts put in place, that, oh, you go based on the 5 tools, you go based on how the player's girlfriend looks, how his confidence is. Yeah, so I immediately went to Moneyball story, and a lot of scenes in the movie really gave me that idea about project management and changing things. Specifically, one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie is when Billy Bean and Peter Brand are sitting at the table with the scouts, and we need to start thinking in terms of buying wins. And to buy those wins, you need to buy runs. And so it was no longer about just buying these players that have all this star power. It was more about finding these undervalued players who could provide what the team needed most, which was getting people on base. And getting people on base led to runs, which led to wins, which led to the Oakland A's historic streak.
So yeah, so that's how it all started. And I was like, cool. think we should do this together, right? So first I was just brainstorming the idea of like, what movie do you think would be good? And then he just did that. And I was like, do you think you could write about that? So that's how we got. And then next thing you know, we were doing this project, and I think it went pretty well. I mean, so we happen to be in a year where and he always has had a lot of writing and a lot of essays for his college classes, et cetera, or high school, and then now college classes too. He's doing dual enrollment. And so he's finishing high school classes and taking college classes, and both have a lot of writing requirements. And by the way, submitting college applications that all want different essays. So let's just say this is the year of writing for this one. So there's just been a lot of writing happening, and he's actually a pretty great writer. And obviously, as you can see, a pretty great communicator. I wish I could talk like that when I was his age on camera. It's impressive. I definitely couldn't. So
I wish I could talk like that right now, being on camera.
I know, right? So sorry, we're embarrassing you. I know, but yeah. So it seemed like such a natural, easy fit. So I made him do a lot of the work.
Yeah, and he did a great job. I love this chapter. In fact, so the book isn't out yet. It's coming soon. And we are finalizing the chapters right now. So this is the first podcast that we're actually talking about this book for real.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited that you had us on this together, and that I happened to be in town when we could do it all together in person. I'm feeling so excited about that. So what has happened is we put the book in 3 sections, and of course the vision, strategy, upfront work has to be first. And that's really what this chapter is about, which is what you talk about all the time, and is a big part of your teachings.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really what stuck out for me when thinking about this being a good topic, for Projectland going to the movies. Moneyball, well, one, it gives us a chance to watch it again, so that was fun. So we were like picking it apart in a totally different way. And there's so many threads throughout throughout that story that align with what project managers are dealing with every day, which is not enough time, not enough money, not enough resources, and an old school approach that everyone is pressuring you to follow all the time. And many project managers have this like desire inside, or this hunger, like, I know there's more, I know this could be easier, this doesn't have to be so frustrating, so overwhelming, but I just don't know why I can't make it quite click. And you have to have this bravery like Billy Beane did, and know how to find the right resources with, Peter Brand, the guy that like exposed this whole shift in mindset from thinking about outputs to thinking about outcomes. Right. And that was the real aha moment for me, because I talk about that all the time, is that one, you have to take a step back from not just focusing on the project execution and look at the whole picture of your strategy life cycle in project management world, right? In Projectland, you have to look at how you're taking people on a journey through the whole strategy to get from the ideas through to strong execution, through to those outcomes. And that's exactly what was happening in this movie, is shifting the focus from perfecting the process and using this old school structure that we've always done it that way, so we should always do it, with all of these metrics that seem good but don't really get the results. Like, they have a great swing, or look at how they have a swagger when they walk up to the plate, so they must be really confident, and that's what's gonna like make a good ball club, versus the whole ability to actually drive wins, right? And so that was really cool to me. You want to?
Yeah, I completely agree. From my perspective, growing up playing baseball my entire life, it was very easy to focus on how things looked on paper versus what actually got results. So I hated bunting. It was usually an easy out for the other team. I hated it. But what I didn't understand was it allowed my team to get closer to scoring runs. And once I made that mindset shift, it was easy to be like, this is what's going to help my team win. And I see that a lot in businesses, where people often chase like big flashy projects and they fill their schedule with busy work. But if it's not what is going to help your team score runs, then it's all just noise.
Right.
I totally agree. And I also want to acknowledge Grayson's bravery because to release a book at the age of 18, when I was 18, I couldn't even think about it. And even when I saw it, I was like, but what if nobody liked it? What if I be judged? So I'd rather not do anything and just be plain and mediocre, but likable. So yeah, it's very brave from you, Grayson. But and also it's fantastic that the book is not even released yet, but we already have in the podcast, and it's the first, but definitely not the last. And I know it's just the beginning, and it's hard to answer the question. But what is next? Have you already thought about the next project, or it was like a year of writing for you, and you think like I would never write anything for the next year or so? Just leave me alone. So how do you feel?
Well, Laura and I both need a break.
Yes.
So we're gonna plan that while I'm here, this
Yes.
break that we need. But Jerry Manis and I co-editing this book, we are so proud of all the authors.
Yes.
Every single author really brought their A game. And we're so honored to have all of these wonderful voices from around the world contributing to this with their favorite movies and their favorite lessons for their movies. So we want to definitely make sure that they all get the kudos that they deserve. And so for the next project, no, I can't even really think about it right now, but in Meet the Players of Projectland that she showed you before,
Yes.
my first book, right? That one was for all the players in Projectland. And so one of the things that's in our plan of 49 more books is one for each of the players. So I started one already for just the project managers. We also have content for just the project sponsors.
Yeah.
So we're probably, that's in the queue at some point, probably sooner than later. Yeah. Thanks for asking.
Fantastic.
Yeah, well, for me, I don't see any books in my future anytime soon. I'm still recovering from the first one I wrote.
Yeah.
But what about you? You think you're going to do any writing, or are you just worried about like, let's get into college?
Yeah, I'm focused on getting into college, getting my degree, and then looking back at all the things I've had the opportunity to do and pursue my dreams and managing businesses.
Yeah. You see that? Maybe he'll take over our businesses. We'll let him run ours.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never know, but definitely something exciting is going to happen after this. And guys, my last question for three of you is what one or two project management tips you would give our audience?
Oh. Okay, so let's see. Who wants to start as far as project management tips?
I'll start. I think the biggest tip that I have is, are you getting your team to the next base? And if you're not doing that, then how can you change to help your team get to the next base? Because winning a baseball game doesn't just happen in one swing or one out. It happens over the course of a bunch of repeated actions, one moment of confidence at a time. And that's really what leadership is. It's giving yourself confidence and also motivating your team to reach that next base and continue to push and push to reach those, to score those runs to win the game.
That was awesome.
I know, right? Like, how do you know?
I'm still processing, sorry.
So I will say this, like, I say this sometimes to our mastermind students. We have a mastermind of PMO and transformation leaders all over the world. And some of the people that are in our program are in like countries that have war going on or like big problems going on, and they still show up to those sessions. And so I'll say to other people, if that person could do it, you can too, right? And so I guess like what I just heard, from Grayson, like he's like impressing me in the moment, proud mama moment. Like here's what I have to say to all the people watching this. If he can do this at 18, you can too, right? So be brave, get up on the stage, do the podcast interview, be the one to do the presentation for the meeting, get out of your comfort zone and believe you can do it. Even if you don't feel that you can, act as if you are confident enough to do it, and give yourself the opportunity, because you never know where your career could go. Not everybody wants to be on stage speaking and on podcasts, but everybody needs to be able to communicate effectively in a way that inspires others to come along on the journey. So I guess my advice would be just like, be brave and just try it.
It's only one moment of confidence at a time.
Nice.
Totally. Dawn, your tip?
Well, I guess I can tie a tip into that, what you guys just said, and that is when I talk about Projectland and I teach newbie project managers. Now, newbie project managers might be very experienced people with decades in business, but it's the first time they're being a project manager. And so I tell them, don't worry, there is no perfect in Projectland.
Right.
There can be no perfect in Projectland, because by the definition of project,
Right.
that every project's unique. So in the history of the world, nobody's ever done this before in this time, in this place, with these people. Something's unique about it. So there's no way you could do things perfectly. So what you have to do instead is you have to consider it practice.
Right. Nice. Well
Totally
done.
in. And well, the last advice from me, I just like want to echo what the three wonderful people said. And I know that many delay their success just because they're afraid of failure. And honestly, I also delayed my success for at least for 10 years just because of that fear. And when I finally dared to do something, I failed. I failed that bad, so I couldn't stand up from my bed for a week or so, and thinking that I will never go back to the stage. I will never do public speaking. I will never address my opinion. I will just stay quiet. But no, I pushed myself further, and it was a topic actually about emotional intelligence and negotiation, which I failed completely. 5 years later, I was invited by NASA as a private instructor to teach the engineers. So even if
Wow.
you dared and failed, consider it as a first learning step. Yes, it was a very painful step, but keep going. Give yourself some time to grieve and then reflect on the lessons. Do it better next time and continue following the steps, and you will get the success sooner or later.
I love that.
That's awesome. One
Yeah.
base at a time, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
One step at a time. And now I would love to continue this conversation, but we have limited time. So thank you, Laura, Grayson, Dawn. It was an amazing, inspiring conversation. And you've shown us that every project, no matter if it's big or small, is really a story. And that when we connect across generations, disciplines, I don't know, forms, we don't just deliver the results, we create the meaning. And to our listeners, Projectland Goes to the Movies is not available right now, but as soon as it is, I will post a link below. And for the recent materials of Project Impact and other links we mentioned, you will see them below. And until the next time, keep your project rolling and your imagination alive. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye.